reminder, dear listeners, we're speaking about a very important subject, General Data Protection Regulation. What does it mean? I've got a very important and special guest in the studio explaining so clearly about this entire situation, Yota Nicolaidou from Secure World Vision. If you need or would like to post any question, please do go onto my Facebook page, Saskia Constantinou 2018, and post your question. Or, no, it's difficult to do the telephone at the moment because we're focusing on this. So send me a message and then we'll be able to speak to you. Yota, the next issue is the penalties for not having complied.
Yeah.
Apart from having a lot of very irate people, what can actually happen to companies and to individuals?
Right, so people understand numbers much better, and that's why they gave these huge fines. And when I'm talking about big fines, I'm talking about 2% of your revenue from the previous year, or 10 million, whichever is higher, not the lower, the higher one.
Wow.
Or if we go to very high impact breaches like the Equifax I mentioned, which happened 1 year ago,
Yes.
and affected 143 million people.
That's terrible.
In a very negative way, like identity theft, we are talking about 20 million or 4% of the worldwide revenue of the company, whichever is higher. So we are talking about very high fines. It's very serious, the whole regulation, and they gave this impact because that's how valuable data is.
Do you believe that someone is going to be fined?
That's a very good question. I love this question. As I said, the person who is going to be fined, yes, of course, there are companies that will be fined with that amount, and we will be hearing in the news about them because GDPR is a big issue and data protection is a big concern for the EU. Actually, they are preparing a second law for business data, but it's something it's not even publicly announced,
All right.
but it's something they do in very fast pace because we are talking about intellectual property data,
Yes.
which are valuable for businesses as
Yes.
well. So the whole point with GDPR and the fines is that you get fined and you damage people lives when you have
Yes.
a data breach or a cyber attack.
Yes.
And these are happening every day. In fact, based on IBM, there are 4,000 attacks per day on businesses. So even in Cyprus, it's not very much announced on the news because companies avoid to
Negative publicity.
Exactly. Now with the GDPR, they have to inform the authorities, and it will
That
be,
they've had a breach.
Yes, it's one of the main reasons. And if you say, well, I will not mention it, I will not announce it, it's not gonna happen. And especially if you don't announce it and they find it from somewhere else, because they will, if other people's lives get affected,
Of course.
they will get, the authorities will get involved. They will start their research to find out how this data leaked, and they will figure out that they started from you, from a cyber attack on you, or a data breach on you, or an employee mistake, because mistakes can happen as well.
Of course. Mm.
So you have to mention it as a business, and that is why I say security. It's kind of GDPR is kind of an enforcement for security, and that is because security is the only way you can get compliant. All the legal terms you will write, contracts, your cookies, your privacy policy, terms of use, are just one part of the equation. If you don't get your systems to make sure that all the data you hold for other people are protected correctly, then one day a data breach or a cyber attack will happen. And in fact, I have the last 2 months, I get a huge getting a lot of information from people who got hacked and they don't know how to deal with that, and they don't know how to get their data back, how their clients will be affected. All this, it's a whole series, and once the attack comes, there is a cycle, and it never stops because hackers are thinking all the time how to reuse the data. We don't
Yes.
have this, you know, in the 90s we got a virus and it was destroying the systems. That was the best thing that could happen to a business right now. The worst, in quotes, the best.
Yes.
The worst it can be that they will be on their network for 7-8 months on average, collecting data.
Wow.
And based on that data, they will figure out what they will request for US ransomware, because now they get systems, you know, like they take them as victims, and they say if you don't pay 1 million, if you don't pay 10,000,
Yes.
depending on who you are and what they have found from your data, what is your value.
Terrifying.
And that's how it happens. So cyber attacks are happening every day. Now, there is one cost that is not mentioned in that amount, and because there are very big amounts, but the thing is that right now, 4,000 attacks per day, remember this number.
Yes.
And we have the biggest number of 65% of these attacks are happening to small and medium-sized businesses. They are not happening to huge companies. And then we have that the average cost based on the European Cybersecurity Agency for an attack is 100,000 euro. Sorry, dollars. 100,000. That's the average cost. And that is not going to be recovered mostly. So apart from that amounts, and apart from being GDPR compliant, you still face this, and you face also the reputation damage, because
That's the
no
worst.
client, exactly, no client is gonna want to be affected in the
No.
future because you're not taken as responsible enough with their data. And it's affecting so many areas of their lives. So if annoyance of receiving a message is big, is very impactful for you, imagine if someone steals your identity because a company is not it's not responsible enough,
Yes.
and they don't care about your data. So and you know, it's a principle of having a business, really. It's taking care and want to serve people. So if we want to be on that and we want to have businesses, we have to be sensitive and we have to know what we hold and how to protect it.